Daniel Ricciardo lit up the racetrack at the Mexican Grand Prix, so why was Yuki Tsunoda swearing at him during the race? Plus, did he leave his good driving a little too later, or is there still an opportunity for him with Mercedes? Stay tuned to find out all that and more coming right up. First up, could Ricciardo be back at Red Bull? Most F1 fans think that Ricciardo made the biggest mistake of his career when he dropped a bomb on Red Bull by announcing his departure in 2018. Since then, his results have been dropped massively, and while his former teammate Max Verstappen has gone on to win 2 world championships, Ricciardo has struggled even to score points. For a man who claimed he left Red Bull because he had bigger dreams, it's been a disaster. He is 12th in the standings and more than 70 points behind Lando Norris, but Ricciardo has been linked to a possible reunion with his old team, which could give the Australian better luck. In the Mexican Grand Prix build-up, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff responded to questions about Ricciardo's next move. Wolff has admitted that he had his eye on the Honey Badger for years, but the time was never right. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any space for him to drive with Mercedes shortly. Lewis Hamilton said he plans to stay in the sport for at least the next 5 years. Meanwhile, George Russell looks to be the team's future, and at just 24 years old, has had a superstar debut season, scoring 7 podiums and edging out Lewis Hamilton, who is a 7-time world champion. So Ricciardo's best move may be to return to Red Bull. Toto said that Daniel was speaking to a few teams, and that one was Red Bull. Next, Verstappen lays out his plans. Red Bull has always had big hopes for Max Verstappen. They debuted him as their youngest driver and gave him every opportunity to prove himself. But what wasn't clear was how much faith Verstappen had in Red Bull until now. In an interview after the Dutchman clinched his 2nd world title, he opened up about his feelings toward the team that has given him everything he ever dreamed of. He thinks of Red Bull as his second family and has grown very close to all key staff members. That's why it was a big blow when Red Bull's founder, Dietrich Mateschitz, died. Verstappen took it hard. Mateschitz was the visionary behind Red Bull's entry into Formula One, and some have credited him with transforming the sport into the 21st century. And Verstappen said that this was one of the reasons that he always believed in the project. Verstappen admitted that the management, mechanical engineering, and design work was above his head, and that he always knew it was a talented group of people. Alongside Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, Max Verstappen is the face of Red Bull Racing, and after a bumpy start to the season, they powered out ahead to leave their main rival Ferrari their dust. But how long can they keep it up? According to Verstappen, the regulations play into their strengths. The fact that there will only be minor changes between now and 2025 means that all their hard work this year will come to pay off. Marko accuses the FIA of funny business. This year's new technical regulations have been matched by financial ones that aim to level the playing field. So, when it was leaked that Red Bull was being investigated for possibly breaching the cost cap, there was outrage. But Helmut Marko was more concerned about how and why that information was leaked, and he has a theory. Red Bull may have escaped their minor overspend last year with a fine and less wind tunnel time, but the controversy is far from over, and now Red Bull is on the attack. Longtime Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko has pointed to the information leak as a sign of corruption. More than a week before any official statements from the FIA, the paddock questioned what a Red Bull overspend would mean, and Mercedes led the chorus, with Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton claiming that anything above $500,000 could have been enough for an entirely new upgrade. So it seems that Mercedes had news of Red Bull's financial situation before anyone else. The question is how? Marko thinks that the answer lies with an ex-Mercedes employee, Shyla Ann Rowe, who was the Secretary General for Autosport earlier this year. At the time, she was working as an advisor to Toto Wolff. Marko said about the crossover, "In our opinion, there is certainly a compliance violation. The whole thing does not make a good impression." Still, Marko is confident that the penalties handed out by the FIA won't be enough to take away the advantages they have worked hard to achieve. This performance spike has created several new, interesting opportunities for Red Bull. How did Ricciardo make a miraculous comeback at the Mexican Grand Prix? And what does he think about paying drivers in the sport? So don't go anywhere. Are we seeing the old Ricciardo back again?
What's going on, everyone? I am Daniel Ricciardo.
Daniel Ricciardo fans finally had something to smile about at the Mexican Grand Prix. He charged through the field with a performance that reminded everyone why he's considered one of the best drivers.
Important one, but we gained a position from
After qualifying in 11th, just outside the points, things didn't look good for the Sunday race, but he powered through Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, and his teammate Lando Norris to finish in P7, despite getting a 10-second penalty for a collision with Yuki Tsunoda on lap 51. Ricciardo was too keen to get past the Tsunoda and lost grip going through a corner, smashing into the side of the AlphaTauri. That incident caused the young AlphaTauri driver to yell over his radio, asking the engineers what Ricciardo was thinking. But even that slip-up didn't take away from a stunning drive. Commentator Martin Brundle said, "Welcome back, Daniel." Suddenly, he lit up and went off. Brundle also thought he could see the motivation and fire in Ricciardo's driving. The Australian has had a tough time adapting to this year's McLaren and has been significantly behind the pace of Lando Norris. And after disappointing results last year, McLaren CEO Zak Brown finally decided to give him the axe. Brown said that Ricciardo didn't meet the team's expectations, so his contract was cut short, and youngster Oscar Piastri will be taking his place next year. That leaves Ricciardo without many options, and he's confirmed that he won't be driving in the sport next year. Next, what Ricciardo thinks of pay drivers. Never ask a man about his salary. In Formula 1, you never ask a driver how much they may have paid for their position in the team. Lewis Hamilton has called the new generation of drivers a billionaire's boys club, and it's easy to see why. Drivers like Nikita Mazepin, Nicholas Latifi, and Lance Stroll have all secured spots in their teams through their family's money. But while Hamilton may get straight to the point, Ricciardo has tried to avoid the touchy topic. Ricciardo's rise to Formula 1 wasn't as straightforward as some of the so-called pay drivers, but that doesn't mean he doesn't understand their position. In an episode of Your Mom's House podcast, Ricciardo was asked about his opinion point blank.
So you feel a lot of it on your neck and like your back. So we go through.
And after a very long pause, he found the right words not to offend anyone. Ricciardo said that whether fans like it or not, it takes a lot of money to make it to Formula 1. Some get that through sponsorships, but most do it through their family's money. But he said that his money doesn't guarantee success. Ricciardo says even if someone has paid your way there, you're still putting your body on the line. That's why he respects all drivers, regardless of their background. Ricciardo was helped along the way by his parents, but not on the same level. Striking a deal to be part of the Red Bull Junior team was the biggest moment of his life. Horner thinks that Verstappen is more impressive than Hamilton. It wasn't a long time ago that we were all complaining about the overpowered Mercedes cars. The complaints about Max Verstappen and Red Bull have started to flood. If you ask Christian Horner, though, Verstappen's 2022 campaign has been one of the best campaigns ever from a single driver. If he wins any more races before the curtains close this season, he will beat Michael Schumacher's record for win percentage. And despite Toto Wolff accusing Red Bull of having a massive advantage last year in terms of resources by overspending, Horner still thinks that Verstappen is still the best driver on the face of the earth. While Mercedes had 7 years of almost total dominance, Verstappen had to scrap with rivals last year and this year. That's why he's still considered to have a massive skill advantage over his competitors. But only time will tell how long he can keep this up. If the reports are right, the only challenge to Verstappen's dominance might be Ricciardo rejoining the team. How many more titles do you think Max Verstappen can win? And what's next for Daniel Ricciardo?